Okay, we've been looking at knowing God. We've looked at His attributes. We've looked at His names, His titles, metaphors that are used in relation to God. Looked at a theological knowledge of God. And again, just a mere theological knowledge is insufficient. So how do we know if our theological knowledge is what it should be? Is that it will lead to a relational knowledge of God. You cannot really have a relational knowledge of God without a theological knowledge of God. We've been looking at some of the characteristics of the relational knowledge of God, what a relational knowledge of God involves. And last week we began to look at the fact that it involves resolve and intent. That is, it gives one a God purpose, a God desire, a God ambition, a God aspiration. Many who profess salvation, their purpose is linked to this world. Their desire is linked to this world. Their ambition, their aspiration, all tied to the world. The reason for that is because that's where the relationship is. They have a relationship with the world. Again, it's what we read in Daniel 1 verse 8. Daniel purposed in his heart. That's spiritual intent. That's a spiritual purpose. And this purpose will define our principles, will define conviction. It will define where we place priority. It is a manifestation of what we're connected to, what our resolve is, what our intent is, what our purpose is. Doesn't matter what you say. It manifests where we are connected. It manifests what is the emphasis of our life. It manifests where our interest is. It manifests where our passion is. Spiritual resolve, a resolve for God. Again, this is not something that's occasional. It's continuous. A continuous resolve for God. And I believe it's a duty. It's a duty to God. But again, it's not just something you can do. It's the result of a relationship with God. And one cannot have a true knowledge of God and not possess passionate, zealous resolve for God. If we truly know, then we will possess a passion, a passionate resolve for God. So last week we started to look through the Psalms, and the psalmist repeatedly uses the words, I will. I will. Sometimes in the negative, such as I will not fear. But I will. Most of the time it's in the positive. And it expresses his resolve. It expresses his intent toward God. And again, this is all has its basis in a relationship with God. Those who profess salvation many times will say, well, I'm going to do better. But you're not. If the relationship does not improve, nothing changes. So that's where we've got to go. That's where we've got to get to, is this relationship, relational knowledge with God. We've seen the psalmist has said thus far, I will praise the Lord. That's his intent. I will show forth the works of God. Again, that's his intent. I will be glad and rejoice in God. I will sing unto the Lord. And when we closed last week, I will trust the Lord. And trust is based upon our degree of faith, which is linked to our relational knowledge of God. If you want to increase faith, relationship with God must improve. That will increase faith. Then notice in Psalm 18, verse 3, he says, I will call upon the Lord. I will call upon the Lord. That's his intent. That's his resolve. I will call upon the Lord. Psalm 55. Psalm 55, verse 16. As for me, I will call upon God. And then you have this trust. And the Lord shall save me. Or the assurance. Our calling upon God is linked to our trust in God. And we learn to trust by having a relationship with God. Psalm 86, verse 7. In the day of my trouble, I will call upon thee. That's his resolve. For thou wilt answer me. That's his assurance. That's his trust. You don't call upon someone that you don't trust, that you haven't had some experience with, and that experience with increases our trust. I will call upon thee. That ought to be our resolve. That ought to be our first instinct. Whatever the circumstances, our first instinct ought to be God. I will call upon thee, and it will be, if we have a deep relationship, an ongoing relationship with God. God should never be the last resort. But that's how it is with many. He's the last resort. He's not the first. He's the last. When they run out of all other options, well, we might as well pray. Might as well call upon God. His resolve is, I will call upon God. Notice also in Psalm 22. Psalm 22. In verse 22. I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the congregation will I praise thee. I will declare thy name. I will give testimony to thy name. His name is who he is. So you have to know something of him. I will declare thy name. If you know nothing of God, you can't declare his name. Because his name is who he is. Psalm 66, verse 16. Come and hear, all ye that fear God, and I will declare what he hath done for my soul. So we have a twofold declaration. I will declare thy name. That's declaring who he is. Here it is, I will declare what he hath done for my soul. It's declaring who he is. It's declaring what he has done for our soul. So we have to have a knowledge of who he is. We have to have an awareness of what he's done for our soul. And notice again, that's just not what he's done for us physically, it's what he's done for our soul. Because the one who has a personal relationship with God, that's where their concern is with their soul. Not so much with just their physical life. Psalm 119. Psalm 119, verse 46. I will speak of thy testimonies. I will speak of thy testimonies. That's speaking of what God has testified. So you have to have a knowledge of that, what God declares in his word concerning himself. So it is a resolve, it is an ambition to proclaim God. It is a resolve, it is an ambition to express God verbally and with our life. And again, this resolve has its basis in a relationship with God. Psalm 30. Psalm 30, verse 12. To the end that my glory may sing praise to thee. That's his desire. And not be silent. O Lord my God, I will give thanks unto thee forever. I will give thanks. How many times have people of God, under a sense of conviction, under a sense of guilt, have said, I'm going to thank the Lord more often. But nothing changes. Again, relationship has to improve. There has to be this relationship. In order to give thanks, within us must be the spirit of thankfulness. If the spirit of thankfulness is in us, it will express itself giving thanks. We develop this spirit of thankfulness, again, in a relationship with God. Because in a relationship with God, we learn who he is, we learn who we are, and you put those two things together, there's going to be thanks. There's going to be thanks. So he's resolved. I will give thanks. But you can't do that unless you're thankful. Which again gets back to a relationship. Psalm 32, verse 5. I acknowledged, past tense, my sin unto thee. And mine iniquity have I not hid. I said, I will. So he's declared the past. And I said, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord. And thou forgavest, past tense. He's had an experience of this. And thou forgavest the iniquity of my sin, Selah. I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord. That's his resolve. So he knew that he would transgress. We do every day. But he's determined, when I transgress, I will confess my transgressions unto the Lord. The resolve is, as soon as we transgress, confess it. Because if you don't do it as soon as you do it, you'll forget by the end of the day. So I will. This is his intent. Notice in Psalm 38, verse 18. For I will declare mine iniquity. I will be sorry for my sin. You cannot have an ongoing relationship with God and not be sorry for your sin. You cannot have an ongoing relationship with God and not confess transgressions. So we have to recognize transgressions, and we do that, again, going back to this relationship with the Lord. The deeper our relational knowledge, the more there is an awareness of sin. The more we become aware, and the more sensitive. I will be sorry. The more sensitive we are in regarding sin. It's being away from God over a period of time that one loses their sensitivity toward God. Once you lose your sensitivity toward God, there's nothing good. It's all downhill spiritually from there. So he is resolved regarding his sin. Then notice in Psalm 39, verse 1. This is connected, and again it's another branch of his resolve. I said, I will take heed to my ways. The reason that I sin not with my tongue, I will keep my mouth with a bridle, while the wicked is before me. So you have two I wills in that verse. I will take heed, that is, I will pay attention. I will take notice. I will be mindful. I will take into account and take to heart my ways. My ways. Now, notice the wicked are before him in that last statement of that verse. It's not, I will take heed to the ways of the wicked. That's not what it is. While the wicked is before me, I will take heed to my ways. I will give attention to what I do, to how I react. Again, a relational knowledge with God causes us to be resolved to pay attention to our own ways. Therefore, we can detect as soon as we take a step in the wrong direction, because we're paying attention. We're paying attention. Those who get far, far from God, one of two things have happened. One, they just haven't been paying attention. Or two, worse, they just don't care. It's one of two. We have to pay attention. As we say many times, you need to stop and look at where you're going. Look at where you're going spiritually. Pay attention. Pay attention. And then he says, I will keep my mouth with a bridle. Both times he's concerned with his words. That I sin not with my tongue. I will keep my mouth with a bridle. And again, this is while the wicked is before me. So there's the temptation to respond to the wicked in a way that we shouldn't. So he says, I will pay attention to my ways. Psalm 54. Psalm 54. Verse 6. I will freely sacrifice unto thee. I will praise thy name. And the reason he's resolved to do these things, O Lord, for it is good. That is, his name is good. Again, you see, he knows God. He knows about God. He has a theological knowledge of God. And this leads to, I will freely sacrifice, without any constraints. I'll freely sacrifice unto thee. I will praise thy name. Psalm 71. Psalm 71, verse 14. In verse 13, there he's consumed. Let them be confounded and consumed that are adversaries to my soul. So there's adversaries to his soul. Let them be covered with reproach and dishonor that seek my hurt. So he has adversaries, spiritual adversaries. That's the worst adversary you can have, is a spiritual adversary, an adversary to your soul. And they seek my hurt. Again, spiritual hurt. But, in spite of this, I will hope continually and will yet praise thee more and more. So, he has a resolve to place his hope, his assurance, continually in the Lord. And if you do that, that leads to perpetual praise. And will praise thee more and more. It's increasing. It's increasing. And that's what spiritual resolve does. It just keeps on increasing. It's not short-lived. That's a problem today. People leave the house of God, I'm going to do this. And they don't even get out to their car. And that's changed. Because you got to get to the root matter. You've got to get to this relationship with God. Until that happens, it's all in vain. He says in Psalm 71 in verse 16, I will go in the strength of the Lord God. I will make mention of thy righteousness, even of thine only. Again, that's a branch of trust. I will go in the strength of the Lord. Which is another way of saying, I will not go in my own strength. I will go in the strength of the Lord. Psalm 77, verse 11. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. I will remember the works of the Lord. Got to be paying attention. You got to observe them before you can remember them. You got to know them before you can remember them. So I will remember his works. I will remember thy wonders, which describes his works. They're wonders. They're miraculous. I will remember. The negative way of saying that is, I will not forget. I will not forget. And again, that gets back to paying attention. I will remember. This is, again, expressed from the negative. I will not forget. Then notice in Psalm 77, verse 12, this is how we remember. I will also meditate. I will meditate also of all thy work. And as you meditate upon the work of God, which are wonders, guess what else you'll do? You'll talk about it. You'll talk about it. You talk about what you give thought to. And if we meditate on His work, we'll find ourselves talking about it as well. Meditation. People meditate on a lot of things that does not help them one iota spiritually. We're to meditate. And that helps us remember. He goes on in Psalm 86. Again, we see the resolve throughout the Psalms. Verse 11. Teach me thy way, O Lord. I will walk in thy truth. If God teaches us, we truly learn, I will walk in thy truth. Unite my heart to fear or to reverence thy name. Psalm 119. Psalm 119, verse 32. I will run the way of thy commandments. That speaks of zeal. That speaks of a pursuit. I will run. I'll be zealous for the way of thy commandments, which speaks of more than just doing His commandments. There's a whole way. There's much involved. When thou shalt enlarge my heart. I will do this when God enlarges my heart. We need an enlarged heart for the Lord. And where do we get that? Through a relationship with Him. He says in Psalm 86, verse 12, I will glorify thy name. It needs to be our resolve. I will glorify thy name. That's my desire, he says. That's what I want to do. I will glorify thy name. That should be our resolve as soon as we get up in the morning. I will glorify thy name. And again, it will be if we have a relationship with Him. Psalm 101 and verse 2. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. Then he says, I will walk within my house with a perfect or sincere heart. I will behave myself wisely. Where do we learn wisdom? Relationship with God. You learn spiritual wisdom from God. He says in Psalm 116 and verse 13, I will enjoy salvation. I will take the cup of salvation. That's, again, my cup overfloweth. That's a way of saying I will enjoy. I will partake of thy salvation and call upon the name of the Lord. When you enjoy God's salvation, that leads to a calling, which we've already considered, unto the Lord. Psalm 119, verse 117. Hold thou me up, and I shall be safe. That's dependence and trust. And I will have respect unto thy statutes continually. This isn't an every now and then thing. I will have respect unto thy statutes. You have to be aware of the statutes before you can have respect unto them. You have to remember them before you can have respect unto them. And then lastly, Psalm 138, verse 2. Psalm 138, verse 2. I will worship. I will worship toward thy holy temple and praise thy name. Again, his name is who he is. Praise is a part of worship. There's an awareness of what he's done for thy loving kindness and for thy truth. For thou hast magnified thy word above all thy name. I will worship. I will worship. That's not even the resolve and the intent of most who walk into the house of God. It's not their intent. I will worship. That's to be every day. I will worship. That needs to be our resolve. So wherever there is a true theological and relational knowledge of God, there will be personal resolve for him. It's the byproduct. Personal resolve is a byproduct of something else. A theological and a relational knowledge of God. So we need to ask ourselves, what is? And don't lie to yourself. What is continually my spiritual resolve? Because that tells us where we are. Where we are spiritually. Let's look to the Lord. Heavenly Father,